Okay, so I've got this idea for an app, and it's a timer app. This is a rough concept that I've just whipped up really quickly. You can see that you can set the time on this screen, and when you start it, then the time shows up and it'll count down. And the thing that I'm planning to do with this app that'll make it special is that the background color will move down as the timer goes down, making it kind of like a modern version of a sand timer and making it really easy to quickly see what time it's up to. So, with this idea, I've actually already had a couple of attempts at programming it, and it's not worked out so well so far. I've had a prototype that's almost worked, almost been completed, but the code behind it has got really messy and really confusing, and I think it's probably best if I start it again from scratch with more knowledge about what I'm doing, and hopefully that'll turn into a nicer project than the other attempts. So, as part of that, I'm going to try and make these videos while I'm doing it, and hopefully learn some speaking uh, abilities. You can see I'm really not good at it right now. Hopefully improve my ability to speak to a camera or speak fluently, and do that along the way. Okay, I'm really messing this up. So basically, these videos are going to be bad until I learn how to speak to a camera, but that's kind of the point, and I'm not going to let myself chop any of this out. I'm going to make sure that it's all in the video, and you can suffer through it and witness me hopefully become better. We'll see. Anyway, so with this project, I'll bring up the last attempt of it. So I'm calling it minimal timer because the idea of it is that it's going to be really simple and minimalistic, but obviously the word minimalistic is a bit of a mouthful, so I figured minimal works just as well. So project's just loading. Give it a sec. Don't know why it's taking so long. Oh well. Oh, okay, we've got the beach ball. Well, hopefully this will work. I'm not cutting any of this out. That's not part of it. Probably part of the reason it's taking so long is because it's such a massive project. You can see down the side here, I've got a million different files. And the worst part about this is that a lot of these files aren't actually useful, or they're duplicates or old files and aren't referenced, but I'm not sure I can delete them because who knows, maybe part of the code is using them, and it's all just a bit overcomplicated and confusing. So this is the basics of the interface. Don't mind all the question marks. They're images that haven't loaded up for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, you can see that this is the view where you can edit it. This is while it's running, and this screen here is actually while it's in the alarm stage, which I found it funny to call it the alarming view. Just a little bit of, I don't know, word humor. Anyway, I've also got down here a settings page, or actually over here, see, it's confusing. And this settings page is going to have some pretty basic settings, which I already tried putting into the default settings app, but I just didn't feel like anyone would actually find those settings. And the other benefit of having a settings page is that I can put some other things that aren't really settings in there. So maybe, there you go, that's a thing that I'm going to try and do. I'm going to not call it settings, I'll call it menu or something like that. Anyway, so yeah, the way that this is all being controlled is using a navigation controller here, which means that I can open the settings page and have the little back button there, and then the navigation controller contains a tab bar controller which contains these three, and I've hidden the tab bar while the application's running. You can see it there, but when the application starts, that tab bar's hidden, and the only way to change between them is using the buttons that I've put into the app. So these buttons, as you could see on the preview, wherever that's gone, yeah, the play and the pause and the cancel buttons, and they cause the tab bar controller to switch it to a different tab. I don't think that that's the best way to do this, actually, and that's one of the main reasons that I want to try starting this project from scratch, because it's going to be quite difficult to change the whole way the project works. With the tab bar controller, it's going to be a little complicated, and the easiest way to do that is just to start it again. But I don't feel like it's really starting the project again, because I've already done a lot of planning, which I can obviously use for the next iteration of it. And I've also learned a lot about the project by doing this attempt and the other attempts before it. And it's really going to be able to guide me in this next version of it. So that'll probably be quite helpful, actually. And I don't feel like I'm starting the project again. I'm just starting another iteration of it, I guess. I don't know. So there you go. I've got a couple of things that I was thinking about with this interface. The best way that I've found to make an interface feel correct and feel at home on a device is to emulate the stock applications. So obviously I'm designing this for an iPhone, and the stock applications on here have a pretty different design language to what I'm using in this prototype. Namely, you can see, I'll just bring up an example in the settings app here, if it'll calibrate for that. It's not going to calibrate for that. Well, anyway, let's bring up Google then. iOS settings app, let's see. So we need iOS 11 at least. Let's try that. Yeah, so you can see here the design language in the latest versions of iOS uses this bold heading, bold left aligned heading, and a massive tab bar over the top, which is prevalent throughout a lot of the apps. So if I, instead of settings, search for the music app, it'll be similar. Or the App Store, there you go. I don't know why that's shown up for music app, but anyway, the App Store uses the same design thing, and I feel like emulating that to a degree with my timer app would actually make it feel more at home on the iPhone. And yeah, the other thing that I'm noticing here looking at this is this idea of cards and, floating elements that look interactive. And this is a thing that I've seen, it's used on Android as well. The idea of cards, and it's a pretty natural way to understand elements on a display, because they feel like they're, oh sorry, I didn't mean to click on that. They feel like they're real interactive things. So there's some things that I'm going to keep in mind, and I'm going to do some work now on trying to redesign my sketch or my mock-up to try and feel a bit more at home next to the other iOS apps. So let's give that a go. So here's a bit of a change. I've, as you can see, made the start, pause and cancel into words instead of icons. And now this sacrifices a bit as far as international illegibility. If I use icons, then obviously someone who doesn't speak English would be able to read these, and I can obviously still translate the words, but then that takes more effort and possibly more resources if I need to use an external translator, because I don't speak all the languages of the world, unfortunately. So, and apart from that being a downside, I think this does look more iOS in a sense. The symbols kind of make the app feel too much like a game, I think, and I don't think that really encapsulates what the app is going for. Where I have used a symbol though is in this little settings icon, which instead of being settings now, I've replaced with the three dots, which signifies a menu or just more information or more content hidden behind it. So that, I think, will more depict what I want to put in there, not just settings, but also maybe some information about the app, or maybe links to other apps that I develop. And I think that'll be pretty good. So the other thing that I'm now thinking about is this timer interface, the settings, the setting of the timer interface. Although it's very obvious that these buttons, well, they don't quite look super obvious as buttons in this sketch, but when they've got a shadow behind them or something to make them look more buttony in the actual interface, those should look pretty obvious. But right now, while it's obvious that they're buttons and that you can click on them, there's nothing to show that you can swipe up and down, which is what I'm intending the functionality to be, because it makes it a lot easier to set the numbers if you can just quickly swipe all the way from 50 to whatever number, to, you know, all the way from 50 down to 10. So I'm going to have to think of another way that I could possibly show that you can set the numbers and show that you can swipe it. The way that iOS does this is by using a little counter, a little rotating counter, which looks obviously like it can rotate, and makes it very simple to see that you can flick up on it to change the numbers. But I'm gonna have to try and find a different way, because obviously that interface wouldn't fit with this minimalistic looking app. I'll just bring up a photo of this. What's it called? Picker wheel, I think. Yeah, so that's a pretty good example of it right there. You can see it's pretty obvious that you can scroll through the things because it looks like an actual wheel on a physical device, and even in the skeuomorphic earlier versions of iOS, it looks even more like that. You can see the side-by-side comparison here. So I'm going to try and think of a different way to do that. And I'm just going to play around with some different options and make a whole lot of options and see what's going to work. Okay, so here's some of the designs that I've come up with. You can see that's the original one right there. And then I tried doing the counter style where, you know, looks like you can rotate the little wheels. But I feel like it's just too complicated for the app. It adds a lot of interest. Same with these two over here. I really like the idea of these floating cards, as I was talking about before. But these ones are a bit too visually intense because I have to have the background color and then the text color, then the card color, and then the text color on top of that. And if I did the text color the same as the background, or just ignore the fact that the dots disappeared, but it's going to make the text not stand out as well as it needs to when it's so important in this timer. So here's the version where the cards themselves are invisible, but it just doesn't look quite right. It's like, why is there two of those when they're obviously not opposite arrows? These ones over here, I tried coming up with a symbol that kind of shows that you can tap it to go up, or you can drag it by combining the arrow with the little drag handle. But these icons I'm not too happy with, so I tried a couple of other versions, including these two and this one, which I think is the best so far, but maybe with a bit more engineering of the icon design, I could come up with some even better versions of, or an even better version of this dragging / arrow icon, and maybe that would be the best option. Anyway, it's getting kind of late, so I think I'm gonna wrap this video up here, and I'll try some more tomorrow and see what I can get done tomorrow and make another video. Let's see how that goes. Okay, goodbye.